Hey, my name's Liam. I'm 25 and I swing a hammer for a living. Framing carpenter, to be exact. I work on new builds in the suburbs outside Portland, Oregon. The kind of neighborhoods where the houses all look the same until the paint dries and the families move in. My days start at 5. Coffee black, no sugar thermos in one hand, tool belt in the other. By 4, I'm covered in sawdust and sweat muscles aching in that good way that says you earned the paycheck. I rent a small studio above a bike shop on Southeast Division. One room kitchenette bathroom the size of a closet. It's quiet and that's how I like it. No roommates, no drama, just me and the sound of tires on wet pavement when it rains. My crew says I'm too slow with everything, not just the nail gun. Slow to date, slow to commit, slow to even text back. Jake, my lead framer, and the closest thing I have to a best friend, never lets it go. You're going to die alone with a perfectly organized socket set, he told me last week, tossing a cold beer across the tailgate. I laugh because it's true. I've had a couple girlfriends nothing longer than a season. They get tired of the quiet, or I get tired of pretending I'm someone louder. Either way, it ends with a polite handshake and a promise to stay friends that neither of us keeps. That's why the blind date caught me off guard. Jake cornered me at the site on a Thursday, dust in the air radio playing some old Springsteen song. Listen, he said, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his wrist. I got a friend who knows a girl. She's different. Interesting. Needs a decent night out, nothing heavy, just coffee conversation, maybe a second cup if it's not awkward. I opened my mouth to say no, same as always, but he kept talking. 1 hour, Liam. 1 hour and I'll shut up about your love life for a month. A month of peace sounded worth it. I shrugged. Fine, text me the details. The details came in a single message. Saturday, 7 p.m. The cozy cup on Alberta. No name, no photo, just she'll be near the window. I almost bailed twice. Once when I realized I didn't own anything nicer than a clean flannel. Once when I stood in front of the mirror and practiced smiling like I wasn't calculating how fast I could escape. But I went because Jake would never let me live it down. Because some part of me, the part that still believed in surprises, wanted to see what different meant. The cozy cup smells like cinnamon and burnt sugar year-round. Wood tables, mismatched chairs, string lights that never quite work right. I walked in at 6:58, scanned the room and saw her immediately. She sat by the window, back to the brick wall, hair the color of wet bark pulled into a low knot. She wore a long-sleeved dress the shade of pine needles, sleeves pushed to the elbows, a thin silver bracelet catching the light. And there, folded neatly beside her chair, was a wheelchair. Matte black compact, the kind you don't notice until you do. I stopped mid-step. Not because of the chair, though. Yeah, that threw me. Because of her eyes, sharp, dark, already watching me like she'd been waiting longer than the clock said. She smiled, small, polite, but not fragile. You're Liam, she said before I reached the table. Her voice was low, steady, the kind that doesn't need volume to be heard. I'm Clara. I pulled out the chair across from her, sat, tried to act like I hadn't just had a 3-second crisis in the doorway. Hi, yeah, Liam. Smooth, real smooth. She tilted her head, amused. Jake said you'd be easy to spot. Tall, quiet, probably wearing sawdust. I looked down at my jeans. Sure enough, a faint white streak across the thigh. I brushed it off. He didn't mention you'd be early. I like watching people guess, she said. Most stare at the chair first. You stared at me. She wasn't accusing, just observing. I opened my mouth closed at decided honesty was the only move left. I stared because you look like you already know how this ends. Her laugh was soft, surprised like she hadn't expected that. Touche, the barista came over a college kid with a sleeve of tattoos and a bored expression. Clara ordered a cappuccino extra foam. No cinnamon. I got black coffee, because that's what I always get. When the cups arrived, she wrapped both hands around hers. Careful, deliberate. I noticed the way her left fingers didn't quite curl the same as the right. I didn't ask. Not yet. We talked about nothing important at first. The rain that wouldn't quit. The new brewery on 28th that overcharged for IPAs. She asked what I build. I told her about the 3-story house going up in Laurelhurst. The way the framing has to be perfect or the whole thing leans. She listened like she could see it. The studs, the joist, the weight settling into place. Precision matters, she said, even when no one sees the bones. I asked what she did. She hesitated just a flicker, then said, I draw freelance children's books mostly. She pulled out her phone, showed me a page of watercolor fox, mid-leap eyes, bright with mischief. I do the sketches digitally now, easier with one good hand. She said it like she was mentioning the weather. I nodded, took a sip of coffee, let the silence sit. Most people would have filled it with questions. I didn't. Half an hour in, she leaned back, studied me. You can ask, everyone does eventually. I set my cup down. Ask what? Why I don't stand up to shake your hand? Why the chair? Why I'm here on a blind date set up by someone who clearly didn't warn you? Her tone was light, but her eyes weren't testing. I thought about it. Really thought. Then I said, I don't need a reason to stay for the rest of this coffee. I just need a reason to get invited to the next one. She blinked once, twice. Then the corner of her mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. That's a new one. The rain picked up outside, drumming the windows. We kept talking. She told me about growing up in Eugene, about art school in Rhode Island, about the accident 4 years ago that changed the map of her life. She didn't linger on the details, just said, one moment you're driving to a gallery opening, the next you're learning how to live in a body that forgot how to walk. I listened. Didn't offer pity, didn't offer solutions, just listened. When the barista started stacking chairs, I realized it was 9. Clara glanced at the clock, then at me. I should go. Early client call tomorrow. I stood, helped her with her coat, not because she needed it, but because it felt right. At the door, I held it open. She maneuvered the chair through like she'd done it 1,000 times. On the sidewalk, the rain had slowed to a mist. I offered to push. She let me just to the curb. She looked up raindrops catching in her lashes. Tomorrow, Laurelhurst Park, 10:02 a.m. I'll bring the sketchbook. You bring the coffee. Deal. I nodded. Deal. She started to roll away, then paused. Liam. Yeah, thanks for not asking. I watched her disappear into the glow of the streetlights, the sound of her wheels soft on the wet pavement. I walked home in the rain, coffee long gone cold in my hand. And for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about how fast I could get to the next job. I was thinking about tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm, the kind of early where the sky is still the color of wet concrete. I lay there for a minute, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a map of nowhere, and realized I was nervous. Not the stomach drop kind, but the quiet buzz under the skin, like when you're about to set a beam that has to be perfect on the first trial run. I showered, pulled on a clean gray Henley and the least faded pair of jeans I owned, and stopped at the corner market for 2 iced peach teas. No sugar, extra ice, just like she'd mentioned in passing the night before. Laurelhurst Park was already alive by 10 o'clock. Joggers looped the paths. Dogs chased frisbees that sailed too high. Kids shrieked around the playground like it was the first day of summer. I found Clara on the same bench we talked about, tucked under the shade of a big leaf maple. The wheelchair was unfolded beside her, a lightweight carbon fiber model that looked more like racing gear than medical equipment. She wore a loose linen shirt the color of faded denim sleeves rolled high and a pair of olive cargo pants cut off just below the knee. A tablet rested on her lap stylus tucked behind her ear like a pencil. She looked up when my shadow crossed the bench. You're punctual, she said, the same half smile from the cafe. I like that in a coffee mule. I handed her the tea. Figured if I was late, you'd draw me with a unibrow or something. Already did, she said, tapping the screen. The tablet woke to a quick sketch, me exaggerated forehead holding 2 cups like a waiter in over his head. I laughed louder than I meant to. A jogger glanced over. Clara didn't. She just took a sip, eyes closing for a second, like the peach was the first good thing that morning. We fell into an easy rhythm. She rolled along the paved path at a steady 3 minutes an hour. I walked beside her, matching pace without thinking. The park smelled like cut grass and wet cedar. Every few minutes, she'd stop to snap a photo with her phone. Light through leaves, a kid's balloon caught in a dogwood, the reflection of clouds in the pond. Reference, she explained. My brain forgets details if I don't steal them. I asked about the accident, not the how. But the after. She didn't flinch. First year was rehab and rage, she said, rolling past a bed of lavender. Second year was bargaining doctors, experimental trials, promises I couldn't keep to myself. Third year, I stopped counting, started drawing again. Turns out paralysis doesn't care about deadlines, but it cares a lot about whether you show up. She said it like she was reading the weather report. I nodded, kept walking. A squirrel darted in front of us. Clara braked smoothly, laughed when it froze amid scurry. See, even rodents respect the chair. We reached the rose garden, rows of blooms just past peak petals, starting to brown at the edges. She parked in the shade, pulled the tablet onto a small lap desk that clipped to the armrest. Watch this, she said, and opened a new file. The stylus moved fast. 10 seconds, 20, and there was the garden, but different. The roses weren't perfect. They were bruised, some missing petals, but the light hit them like they were the only flowers in the world. She turned the screen. Real isn't pretty, real is interesting. I sat on the bench across from her, elbows on knees. You ever get tired of interesting? Every day, she said, but tired is better than invisible. We stayed until the sun climbed high enough to make the metal on her chair too hot to touch. I offered my arm when we hit a gravel patch. She took it grip firm, no hesitation. Her fingers were calloused on the right, soft on the left, where the nerves didn't fire the same. I noticed but didn't mention it. She noticed me noticing and squeezed once like a period at the end of a sentence. At the pond, a little boy stared openly. His mom tugged him away, whispering. Clara watched them go, then looked at me. You want to know the worst part? Tell me. It's not the stares. It's the apology in people's eyes when they realize they're in my way. I thought about that, about the way Jake's voice went soft when he set up the date like he was apologizing in advance, about the barista who'd hovered too long with the cappuccino waiting for permission to set it down. I opened my mouth, closed it, then said the only thing that felt true. I don't want to be another apology. Clara studied me for a long second. Then don't be. We walked rolled back toward the entrance. She asked about my work. I told her about the house in Laurelhurst, how the framers had to redo a wall because the architect changed his mind at the last minute. Feels like building a puzzle with half the pieces missing, I said. She nodded. Welcome to my life. Welcome to Near the Gate, she stopped. There's a concert next Friday outdoor on the East Bank. Acoustic thing. Blanket, string, lights, overpriced tacos. She said it casual like she was mentioning the weather. I've got an extra ticket. Well, an extra spot on the grass. I didn't answer right away. Not because I was calculating, but because I was picturing at her on a blanket. Me beside her, the way people would look, the way I would look at them looking. Then I pictured her face if I said no. I'm in, I said. But I'm bringing the tacos and the blanket. You just bring the sketchbook. She smiled, the real kind this time, the kind that reached her eyes. Deal. That night I lay in bed. The window cracked open to let in the sound of distant traffic. My phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Thanks for not treating me like a project. I stared at it until the screen went dark. Then I typed back, thanks for not treating me like a checklist. She sent a single emoji, a fox. I fell asleep smiling like an idiot. The week crawled. I framed walls, drove nails, measured twice, cut once. Every night I walked past the park, half hoping to see her, half glad I didn't. Friday finally came. I showered off the day's dust, changed into a clean black tee, and the one pair of boots that weren't scarred. I stopped at the food carts on Mississippi, grabbed carnita tacos and a bag of churros, folded a wool blanket under my arm. The riverfront was already filling up blankets spread like patchwork kids running with glow sticks, a guy tuning a guitar under a canopy of Edison bulbs. I found her near the back, close enough to hear, but far enough from the crowd. She'd spread a quilt already navy with tiny white stars. A small cooler sat beside it. Iced tea, no sugar. She wore a loose sweater the color of storm clouds, hair down for the first time catching the light. You're early, she said. So are you, she shrugged. I like watching the setup. People arranging their lives on 6 square 50 of grass. I handed her a taco. The music started some indie stew with a cello and a voice like smoke. We ate, talked between songs. She told me about the children's book she was illustrating, a story about a fox who couldn't jump, but learned to fly with paper wings. I told her about the time I accidentally framed the wall upside down and had to tear it out at 2 a.m. She laughed so hard she snorted, then covered her mouth like she was embarrassed. I told her it was the best sound I'd heard all week. The night cooled. I draped the extra blanket over her shoulders without asking. She let me. Halfway through the set, a couple nearby started whispering, eyes flicking toward the chair. Clara's jaw tightened. I saw it before she did. She folded her arms, looked at the stage like she could see through it. The song ended. Applause, then silence. She turned to me, voice low. I think I'm done. I didn't argue. I packed the cooler, folded the quilt. We left before the encore. The walk to the parking lot was quiet, just the sound of her wheels on asphalt and my boots keeping time. At her van-modified ramp folding out smooth, she stopped. I'm sorry, she said. I thought I could handle it. You don't owe anyone a performance, I said. She looked at me, then really looked like she was trying to see past the words. You're not what I expected, neither are you. She nodded once, climbed into the driver's seat with a practiced transfer that made my chest ache in a way I couldn't name. The ramp folded, the engine started. She rolled the window down. I'll text you, she said. Then she was gone. I stood in the empty spot long after her taillights disappeared. The churros cold in my hand, the music still drifting from the field. I didn't know it then, but that was the last time I'd see her for 10 days. The silence started the next morning. No text, no fox emoji, nothing. I told myself it was fine. She was busy, probably had a deadline. Maybe the concert had just been too much. I went to work, drove nails, measured twice, cut once. Jake asked how the date went. I said it was good, left it at that. He didn't push. By day 3, the quiet felt heavier. I walked past the park after my shift, the bench, emptied the maple leaves starting to yellow at the edges. I sat there for 20 minutes, phone in hand, thumb hovering over her name. I typed, hey, everything okay? Deleted it, typed again. Still owe you those churros, deleted that too. I didn't send anything. Day 5, I started drawing, not well. Stick figures, really. The bench, the pond, her silhouette against the water. I used the backs of job site permits, the margins of lumber cut lists. The lines were crooked, the proportions wrong, but it was something to do with my hands. When my head wouldn't shut up, I told myself it was just a way to pass time. I didn't admit it was a way to keep her from disappearing completely. Day 7, Jake cornered me at the site. You look like hell, man. What happened? I shrugged, hammered a nail too hard, split the stud. He waited. Finally, I said she ghosted. He didn't laugh, just handed me a cold water and said, give it space. People got their own storms. I nodded, but space felt like a hole I kept falling through. Day 10, I left a sketch in her mailbox. Just a pencil drawing on graph paper. Me sitting on the bench holding 2 iced teas looking like an idiot. No note, I didn't expect a reply. I just needed to put something in the world that said I was still here. The concert night replayed on a loop. The whispers. The way her shoulders had folded in like a paper crane crushed in a fist. The way she'd said, I'm done. Like she was switching off a light. I kept thinking if I'd said something different, done something different, maybe she'd still be talking to me. But every replay ended the same, her van pulling away, taillights fading into the dark. I started running, not far, just loops around the park at dusk, the rhythm of my boots on the path, the burn in my lungs, the way the air tasted like wet leaves and exhaust. I passed the rose garden, the pond, the bench. Every time I expected to see her, every time I didn't. I told myself it was exercise, it wasn't. One night, I sat on the bench until the streetlights flickered on. A couple walked by with a stroller, the baby asleep, the dad pushing with one hand, holding the moms with the other. They didn't look at me. I envied them. Not the baby, not the stroller, just the way they moved like they belonged together. Like the world had agreed to make space for them. I stayed until the park emptied, until the only sound was the wind in the maple and the creak of the bench. When I shifted my weight, I didn't cry. I'm not built that way. But I felt it in my chest, a pressure like a beam that's carrying too much load waiting to snap. I thought about texting Jake asking if he knew anything. I didn't. I thought about driving to her place, knocking on the door, demanding to know why. I didn't. I just sat there drawing circles in the sawdust on my jeans until the cold seeped through my jacket and I had to move or freeze. The next morning I found the envelope. It was in my mailbox. No stamp, no address, just my name in neat block letters. Inside was a single sheet of heavy drawing paper. A sketch, me on the bench, holding the two iced teas, but the lines were clean, confident, the shading soft where the light hit my shoulders. My face wasn't exaggerated this time. It was careful, almost gentle. On the back, in the same neat handwriting, people only draw what they don't want to forget. Thank you for drawing me when I erased myself. I stared at it until the paper trembled in my hands. Then I ran. Not the measured jog I'd been doing, but a full sprint, boots pounding the sidewalk lungs, burning the sketch clutched against my chest. I didn't know where she lived exactly, but I knew the park. I knew the bench. I knew the tree. She was there under the maple, the one with the lowest branch that curved like a question mark. She sat with her back to the trunk tablet on her lap, stylus moving in small, deliberate strokes. The wheelchair was folded beside her like a loyal dog. She didn't look up when my footsteps slowed, didn't look up when I stopped 10 feet away, breathing like I'd run a marathon. I held up the sketch. This yours? She glanced over it, eyes widening for a split second before settling back into that calm, unreadable expression. Thought you might recognize the subject. I took a step closer. You didn't sign it, didn't need to. She set the stylus down. You came. You stopped. She looked away toward the pond where a lone duck paddled in lazy circles. I needed to see if I could. Could what be the version of me that doesn't need fixing? She picked at a thread on her sleeve. The concert. It wasn't the stairs. It was the way they made me feel like I was still auditioning for my own life. I sat on the grass, not too close, not too far. I didn't know what to say. You didn't say anything. That's why I left. Silence stretched between us, thick, but not uncomfortable. A kid's bike bell rang somewhere down the path. Clara picked up the tablet again, turned it so I could see. Another sketch. Me running. Hair wild mouth opened the sked from the envelope clutched to my chest. The lines were frantic, alive. I drew this yesterday, she said. After I saw you leave the first one, I swallowed. I thought you were done. I thought so too. She set the tablet down, but then I kept thinking about the way you looked at me. Not the chair, not the accident, me. And I realized I'd been waiting for someone to look at me like that my whole life. And when you did, I ran. I leaned back on my hands. The grass cooled through my fingers. I'm not good at chasing. Good. I'm not good at being chased. She smiled. Small reel, but maybe we're both okay at showing up. I nodded. Saturday, 10 a.m., same bench. She picked up the stylus, tapped the screen once. Bring the tea, I'll bring the sketchbook. And Liam, yeah, don't draw me again unless you mean it. I stood, brushed the grass off my jeans. I mean it. She watched me go, the stylus moving again, the ducks still paddling the maple leaves, rustling like they were keeping our secret. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The bench would be there. So would she. Saturday came with a sky, the color of worn denim, clouds low, but not threatening. I was at the bench by 9:47. Two iced peach teas sweating in a cardboard carrier, a paper bag of lemon scones balanced on top. The park smelled like damp earth and distant barbecue smoke. I sat, set the drinks down, and waited. No phone, no sketching, just the sound of leaves and the occasional bark of a dog too excited for its own good. At 10:03, I heard the soft whir of wheels on pavement. Clara rolled into view slower than usual, like she was giving herself time to change her mind. She wore a charcoal hoodie, sleeves pushed to the elbows, and the same cargo pants from the rose garden. Her hair was down, catching the breeze, and the tablet was tucked under one arm like a shield. She stopped a few feet away, didn't speak, just looked at me with that same unreadable calm. I stood. You're late. Traffic, she said, and second thoughts. Third thoughts. Working on it, I handed her a tea. She took it with her right hand, the left resting loose in her lap. We sat, not side by side. I took the far end of the bench, leaving space for the chair. She noticed, didn't comment. The silence stretched comfortable this time, like a blanket you don't need to pull tight. She broke it first. I owe you an explanation. You don't owe me anything. I owe myself one. She set the tea on the armrest, pulled the tablet onto her lap. After the concert, I went home and deleted every sketch I'd done of you. Not because I didn't like them, because I was scared they'd be all I had left. I nodded. I get scared too. Just don't delete us clean. She tapped the screen. The fox from the children's book appeared mid-leap, wings made of torn paper. This is due Monday. I haven't slept. She turned the tablet so I could see the layers panel. Dozens of versions, each wing slightly different. I kept thinking if I got the wings right, maybe I'd figure out how to fly again. Then I realized I was trying to fix the wrong thing. I took a scone, broke it in half, handed her the bigger piece. What's the right thing? She bit into the scone crumbs catching in her hoodie strings, letting someone see the crash site without handing them a broom. I laughed soft. I'm better with hammers. Good, I've got plenty of walls. We ate in silence for a minute. A jogger passed earbuds and oblivious. Clara watched him go, then looked at me. I used to think love was about making someone whole. Then I realized it's about making space for the parts that are already broken. I set my half of the scone down. I don't want to fix you, Clara. I just want to be in the room when you're drawing. She blinked, looked away, then back. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me without using the word inspire. I grinned. I save inspire for job site pep talks. She laughed, the sound bright, startled like a bird taking off. Then she opened a new file on the tablet. The screen filled with the park, our bench, the maple, the pond in the background. But the perspective was from her height. The world tilted slightly the way it must look from the chair. She'd drawn me sitting at the end, one boot on the ground, one knee up, looking not at her but at the duck paddling in circles. The lines were careful, tender. Started this the night you left the first sketch, she said. Couldn't finish it until now. I leaned closer. You got my nose wrong. Liar, it's perfect. We stayed until the sun shifted and the shade moved off the bench. She showed me how the stylus pressure changed the line weight, how she'd learned to brace her left arm against the chair to steady the right. I told her about the house in Laurelhurst, how the roof trusses were going up next week, how the architect kept changing the pitch and driving everyone crazy. She listened like she could see the angles, the weight, the way the wood groaned into place. At noon, she packed the tablet. I should go. Deadline. I stood. Walk you to the gate. Roll me to the gate, she corrected. I fell in beside her, matching pace. At the entrance, she stopped. Next Saturday, same time. I'll bring donuts, glazed. Only kind that matters. She started to roll away, then paused. Liam. Yeah, I'm not promising anything. No labels, no timeline, just Saturdays. I nodded. Saturday's work. She smiled the real kind again and rolled off. I watched until she turned the corner, the sound of her wheels fading into the hum of the city. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. The bench would be there. So would she. That night, I hung the sketch she'd given me on the wall above my desk. Me on the bench, the duck, the tilted world. I didn't frame it, just a pushpin in each corner. It looked right that way. Unfinished. Honest. I fell asleep with the window open, the sound of rain on the fire escape, and for the first time in 10 days, I didn't dream of empty benches. The Saturdays settled into a rhythm, quiet and deliberate like the way you set a level on a beam and trust it to stay true. I'd wake at 8 off the weak sawdust stop at the donut shop on 39th for a dozen glazed, still warm paper bag, translucent with grease. By 9:55, I'd be at the bench, 2 iced teas, sweating on the wood, the park just waking up. Clara would roll in at 10:03 sometimes. 10:07, never earlier, never with an apology. She'd park the chair, unfold the lap desk, and we'd begin. Some mornings we talked. She'd show me the newest pages for the Fox book wings, stronger now, paper replaced with feathers she'd photographed on a rare trip to the coast. I'd tell her about the Laurelhurst house, how the drywallers had finally shown up, how the architect had changed the pitch again, and the roofers were cursing in 3 languages. She'd laugh the sound low and easy and sketch the crew in caricature hard hats, 2 small mouths open mid-sea wear. Other mornings we didn't. She'd draw stylists moving in small arcs, and I'd raid whatever paperback I'd grabbed from the library sale, usually something dog-eared and smelling like someone else's attic. The silence wasn't empty. It was full the way a framed wall is full before the insulation goes in. You know, it's holding something, even if you can't see it yet. Rainy Saturdays, we moved under the maple's lowest branch, a natural umbrella when the drops were light. I'd bring a tarp drape it like a lean-to, and we'd sit closer shoulders, almost touching, sharing one thermos of hot tea because the ice stuff got cold too fast. She'd tease me about my Pacific Northwest blood. You call this rain, and I'd remind her she'd moved here from Rhode Island, where winters tried to kill you. She'd concede with a grin, then go back to drawing the way the water beaded on the leaves. One October morning, the air smelled like wood smoke and wet pavement. Clara showed up in a wool coat the color of storm cloud scarf wrapped twice around her neck. She handed me a small envelope before she even sat. Inside was a printed card, the cover of her new book, The Fox. Mid-flight wings spread wide, eyes bright with mischief. My name was in the dedication's 3rd line down to L, who showed up when the wings were still paper. I looked at her. You didn't have to. I wanted to. She shrugged like it was nothing, but her ears were pink. Besides, the publisher asked for someone who believed in the story. You were the only one who didn't ask if the fox could really fly. I tucked the card into my jacket pocket right over my heart and didn't say anything else. Words would have been too loud. Winter came slow. The park emptied earlier, the path slick with frost. We switched to the covered picnic area near the playground, a concrete slab with a roof and one working light. I'd bring a camp stove, heat seether in a dented pot, the steam fogging the air between us. Clara started wearing fingerless gloves, the kind that let her keep drawing even when the cold bit. She'd sketched the bare trees, the way the branches looked like veins against the gray sky. And I'd watch the way her breath clouded, the way she didn't shiver even when the wind cut through. One February Saturday, the sky opened up real rain, the kind that soaks through flannel in minutes. We huddled under the picnic roof, the camp stove hissing between us. Clara's teeth chattered once, just once before she caught herself. I took off my jacket, draped it over her shoulders without asking. She let me. The sleeves hung past her hands. She pushed them up, looked at me with something soft in her eyes. You're going to freeze, she said. Worth it. She leaned over just enough that her shoulder pressed against my arm. Not a hug, not a promise, just contact. We stayed like that until the rain eased to a drizzle, the cider gone, the donuts reduced to crumbs. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. I see you, Liam. I nodded. I see you too. Spring returned with dogwood blossoms and the smell of cut grass. The bench was ours again. Clara's hair grew longer. She started wearing it in a loose braid that swung when she laughed. I grew a beard, shaved it off when the sawdust got stuck in it, grew it back when she said it made me look like a lumberjack who read poetry. We didn't talk about moving in together. We didn't talk about rings or futures, or what happens when the book tour she'd been offered took her to Seattle for a week. We just kept showing up. One June evening, the sun low and gold, Clara rolled up with a small wooden box in her lap. Inside was a key, not shiny, not new, brass-worn, smooth at the edges. To my place, she said, in case you ever need to drop off donuts when I'm not home. I took it, turned it over my fingers. You sure? I'm sure I don't want to keep unlocking the door with my teeth when my hands are full of groceries. I laughed, slipped the key onto my ring next to the truck key. It fit like it had always been there. We didn't say, I love you. We didn't need to. Love was in the glazed donuts, the iced tea with extra ice, the way I knew to bring a second stylus when hers wore down, the way she knew to text left at 6:15 when the site ran late. It was in the Saturdays that stretched into Sundays sometimes when we'd drive to the coast in her van. Me behind the wheel, her navigating with a paper map because GPS lied about the scenic routes. One August afternoon, the park was packed. Families' picnics, a birthday party with too many balloons. We found a quiet spot by the pond, the one with the overhanging willow. Clara sketched a little girl chasing Bubbles, her wheelchair forgotten in the grass. I lay back, hands behind my head, watching clouds drift. She looked over stylist still. "You ever think this is it?" she asked. "This us, the bench, the donuts, the quiet." I thought about the house in Laurelhurst finally finished the family moving in next week. About the way Clara's laugh had become the sound I measured every other sound against. About the key on my ring, the spare toothbrush in my bathroom that had appeared without discussion. "Yeah," I said, "I think this is it." She smiled, went back to drawing. The little girl popped a bubble, squealed, ran off. Clara's stylist moved slower, now deliberate. When she turned the tablet, it was us, me lying back her in the chair, the willow framing us like a secret. The lines were simple, sure. No labels, no promises, just two people present. I sat up, brushed grass off my jeans. Next Saturday, same time, she said, "Bring the good donuts." I stood, offered my hand to steady her as she folded the lap desk. She took it, gripped firm, and for a moment we just stood there, the pond rippling, the willow whispering, the world moving around us like it always had. Then she let go, rolled toward the path, and I fell in beside her matching pace. The bench would be there next week. So would we. In the quiet rhythm of Saturdays under a maple tree, Liam and Clara taught us that love isn't about fixing someone's broken pieces. It's about showing up again and again with iced tea and glazed donuts, seeing the person beyond the chair, the scars, or the silence. It's in the unspoken understanding when words fail, in the sketch left in a mailbox without expectation, in the courage to run back when fear whispers to walk away. Their story whispers a truth we often forget. Real connection blooms not in grand gestures, but in the steady choice to stay present, to listen without pity, to hold space for someone's truth without trying to rewrite it. Clara didn't need Liam to carry her. She needed him to walk beside her. And Liam, slow to love, learned that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the strongest beam in any foundation. This is the lesson. Love at its deepest is mutual presence. It's saying, "I see you," not the accident, not the struggle, just you, and meaning it enough to keep coming back. So tell me in the comments, what's one moment someone showed up for you when you felt invisible? Or when did you choose to stay for someone else? Drop your story below. I read every single one. If this touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We're building a community where real stories remind us we're never alone. Let's keep showing up together.